Okay, welcome everybody to our online webinar on Brexit, which is co-organised by Cosmetics Cluster UK and also the Global Cosmetics Cluster. Today, I'm really pleased to welcome attendees from quite a few parts of the world and also representing different companies, so that's wonderful. What we're doing today is taking stock on how the industry has coped with Brexit so far and what lessons have been learned and what the impact of Brexit has been in the first quarter. Just to give you a rundown of the programme, which I'm fairly sure you'll be aware of, I'm Jane Evison, Director of Cosmetics Cluster UK, and I'm going to be giving an introduction and an overview for today's meeting. Then Francesca Rapolla, who is the Regulatory Affairs Manager from the CTPA, is going to talk about the new UK regulatory landscape. She has actually been with CTPA since 2018, and she's responsible for UK and EU regulatory matters concerning cosmetics, including the Cosmetics Regulation, REACH, claims, borderlines, aerosols, Brexit, etc. And she works extensively with members to engage with the UK government and other relevant trade associations on the future UK regulatory frameworks for cosmetics, and feeds into the key insights for Brexit negotiations between the UK and the EU. Then our next speaker will be Rachel Whitaker from Indie Beauty Delivers, who's going to talk about the trading challenges for UK companies marketing in the EU. Rachel is an expert in UK beauty logistics and supply chain, and she's got over 20 years of experience helping independent brands set up robust logistics infrastructures, so that ensures they can compete on a level playing field with established brands. So she brings big brand logistics to brands with big dreams. Our next speaker or speakers will be Agathe Goyon and Nataliya Muller from Ecomundo. They are going to speak about the perspective from EU to UK and give examples of case studies. Agathe is the Cosmetic Director for Ecomundo, and Nataliya is head of the cosmetics market, and both have got a wealth of experience with major cosmetic raw materials and brands in their career so far. Our panel discussion, which follows at about 3 p.m, is we will be joined by Amanda Isom from Bloom Regulatory. She is actually their Regulatory Affairs Associate Director, and she's got over 20 years of experience in the cosmetics industry, including time at the CTPA. And so she also has a wealth of experience which she can bring to bear in our panel discussion. If you would like to submit questions, please put them into the Q&A. My colleague Kirsty Mawini is actually handling the organisation of the webinar, so she will manage the questions for us. Okay, so I'm going to start with a quick introduction for those who don't know Cosmetics Cluster UK. We relaunched the Cosmetics Cluster at the beginning of 2020, which was obviously a good time because it was just as the COVID pandemic started to happen. And we launched it as a not-for-profit charitable company with the aim of representing the industry from research to retail and to connect all aspects of the value chain from research through to retail, so business and academia, small companies, etc. The management board includes Jill Westgate, myself, Alistair Gardner, and Lisa Buck, and Kirsty McWhinney joined us in January this year to help us focus on our communications activities and bring her experience in that field. We've got 4 key pillars of focus: networking international clusters, which is how we're part of the global cosmetics cluster, and it's really important to us to work together with that group, which includes Cosmetic Valley, the Canadian cluster, and the Barcelona beauty cluster as well, amongst other ones. We are doing a series of webinars, this one in conjunction with GCC, but also in our own right, and our next one we will be co-hosting with the National Biofilms Innovation Centre on the topic of antiperspirants and deodorants, and that promises to be very interesting, much more technical and scientific about the technology of antiperspirants and deodorants. Our website, www.cosmeticscluster.uk. If you're interested in joining us or signing up for our newsletter, that's where you go to be able to do that. So to set the scene, next slide, Kirsty, please. We all know Brexit has happened. We can't fail to have noticed that. Just to sort of set the scene to the economic background, cosmetics is a global industry, and it impacts consumers, companies, markets, personnel, finished products, raw materials, services, and it's all impacted by the global economic climate and trade. In the UK, the value of the C&T industry imported into the UK was estimated to be 2.6 billion, whereas exports were 3.6 billion. That is, not an insignificant amount. And the value of the actual cosmetics market in the UK, according to CTPA, was 9.35 billion in 2019. Now, obviously, with the impact of COVID and the amount of retail outlets which had to be, and still are in some cases, closed due to lockdowns, and salons and spas being open, we don't know, we actually don't know the, sorry, Kirsty, I'm losing my slide there. We don't know the true impact that COVID is going to have on those numbers. So the next slide, please, is the impact of Brexit. I've lost the screen, Kirsty. There we go. So we were promised frictionless trade with the deal. Has that actually happened? What we've been seeing, particularly what I want to emphasize amongst all these different things, are increased costs of doing everything, and also disruptions and delays, which have impacted supply chain, delivery, and companies' ability to fulfill orders, which potentially can impact on revenue and also companies' reputation if they can't actually deliver product. The situation is quite complex. I think everybody would agree. Northern Ireland is a case, that makes things even more complicated. And we're also seeing e-commerce, which has grown quite rapidly during the pandemic, obviously also is affected by, the complications of trading. I have put a reference to an article. It's quite difficult to find articles actually at the moment and information that gives real concrete data on what's actually happening, but the FT is a pretty good source if you do want to look. So next slide, please, Kirsty. So it is a complex situation. The question is, are we just having teething problems and seeing teething problems as our government and other people lead us to believe? Or I think some things will ease out, but other things, I think the costs, basically, I think we will have to live with. A lot of companies are just being left to get on with it and find their own solutions independently, which is okay if you can do that. But with cases of small companies, the impact of increased costs and red tape is more difficult to absorb, and they're not always able to pass those costs on. I did mention before about the delays which may cause lack of fulfillment, and then that obviously has an impact on people's bottom line. We do see that the larger multinational companies have got more ability to adapt because they're already multinational and have different locations. So it's been easier to actually absorb the cost and actually the organization and the different scenarios. But what also none of us could have foreseen was the COVID outbreak and what that would do to business and to the economy, as well as to people's health, obviously. And I think it's quite difficult to actually extricate one from the other in terms of the economic and commercial impact. In the UK, the Department of International Trade does offer advice and assistance to exporters, and I know that they do help people. And our board member, Alistair Gardner, is a representative of the DIT. So if anybody does need assistance, please contact your local DIT agent or go through us. Next slide, please, Kirsty. So really, I think it is too early to say what the true impact of Brexit is going to be. We have seen evidence that there was a bit of stockpiling, and now we're coming to a point where companies really are going to have to replenish stocks, and so that sort of time lag is starting to now need addressing. In terms of levels of business, we're not really sure because of COVID what the levels of business are going to return to. But really, the picture is just emerging from example from our Office for National Statistics, who survey businesses. And obviously it's a sample, it's not necessarily the whole picture, but it is interesting because they are stating when surveyed that about 38 and 39% are seeing increased paperwork. Next slide, please. I'm sharing some information from the ONS, which I've given you the link below, which gives you more detail about the particular questions that they ask and the responses. I think it's quite interesting that it actually shows that approximately 50% of companies responded said that they weren't experiencing any challenges. So obviously that means still a lot of people are, but that's what their survey shows. So in conclusion, going forward, only time will really tell what the long-term impact of Brexit is going to be, and as I said, some companies may not survive the rising costs or the loss of contracts, but there are also ways of overcoming the hurdles. COVID-19 is having its own impact, and the cosmetics industry isn't immune to that, but it is a creative and innovative industry, and it is forecast to bounce back. And it, as has been seen in its response to the COVID pandemic. Final slide, Kirsty, please. So in the short term, industry is adapting rapidly to the new landscape, and there are opportunities such as providing regulatory advice and responsible person facilities, or local production. But the full picture, it isn't easy to see at the moment. And, you know, it could involve possible lack of inward investment into the UK. However, that, you know, that isn't necessarily what will happen. Another thing that might impact our industry is the movement of personnel such as scientists, which has been able to happen freely in the EU. And unless people already have right to remain and rights of settlement, then new people coming in, there may be, you know, teething problems over that. But I do think that in these times, associations can play a big part in gathering people together, providing clarity on regulation and legislation and moral support as well, especially for the smaller companies. And so CCUK wants to continue to be part of the Global Cluster Network, you know, to have access to the international collaboration that it allows. We have produced an article which is going to be published in L'Apivine, which is the Cosmetic Value magazine, next month. So that will also, I think, go on the Global Clusters website, and hope you will also use that as further reading. So if we can go to the first speaker, who is Francesca Rapolla from the CTPA. She can talk about the new UK regulatory landscape.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. And I'm just sharing the screen. Let me know if it's working. So good. Right. So good afternoon, everyone. There is a lot to say about the new UK regulatory landscape, but I'll try to be synthetic and concise and give you, the key points that you need to take into consideration. But I'll also give you some key points to continue to trade with Europe. So hopefully they will be, the most important things to remember. And then, of course, further details will be available in guidance that I linked through in the presentation. So just to start with the UK side of Brexit and the UK regulations that apply to cosmetics. So first of all, and of course, the most important ones is the UK Cosmetics Regulation. So the legal text is actually officially called Schedule 34 of the Product Safety and Metrology Statutory Instrument, and it has got various amendments. So it's actually quite difficult to read because you do need to have the EU Cosmetics Regulation and then the various statutory instruments from the UK to address the changes that were made. But hopefully a consolidated version will be available soon. It's important to highlight that the UK Cosmetics Regulation is only applicable to the GB market. So England, Wales, and Scotland as Great Britain. And of course, it came into force on 1st January 2021. And why is it applicable only to the GB market? This is because Northern Ireland continues to follow the EU rules. So I know Jane mentioned about Northern Ireland being complicated, and yes, it is, because, effectively Northern Ireland is part of the UK, but from a regulatory point of view, the Northern Ireland Protocol actually provides for Northern Ireland to follow EU regulations. So that's why UK Cosmetics Regulation only for products sold in the GB market. And then if you sell in Northern Ireland, you need to follow the EU Cosmetics Regulation and EU REACH. We're going to mention REACH as well in this session. And just to give a bit of background, general background about the UK Cosmetic Regulation. So it is effectively transposed EU law. So if you've been familiar in the past years with the EU Cosmetics Regulation, it might be a little bit easier to become familiar with the UK Cosmetics Regulation, because effectively the same regulatory principles and the same safety standards apply. So whilst you had the EU responsible person for selling in Europe, you have the UK responsible person to sell in GB. The concepts of products to have the product information file, to have the safety assessment are exactly the same. The labeling requirements, again, are the same, so they haven't changed when the EU Cosmetics Regulation was transposed into UK law. Of course, there are UK applicable information, such as UK responsible person address, and also the notification concept in order to notify products before they are placed on the market. This is being replicated, and the UK has its own notification portal called SCPN, and in full is Submit Cosmetic Products Notifications. The post-market surveillance principles have also been replicated, so you do have the cosmetovigilance process to alert authorities of any serious undesirable effect, and also the way that ingredients are managed and monitored in terms of safety. This is also being replicated for the UK market. So again, if you are familiar with the principles and the requirements of the EU Cosmetics Regulation, take those and put them as applicable to the UK market. And just a few tips on the most important points that you need to take into account in order to be compliant with the UK Cosmetics Regulation. So first of all, you must have a UK-based responsible person, because any responsible person located in Europe will not be accepted by UK authorities under the UK Cosmetics Regulation. And as I mentioned earlier, the name and address of the responsible person in the UK must be on pack. And the UK government actually provided a 2 years grace period from 1st January 2021. So that takes us to end of 2022 in order to add the UK responsible person name and address. And then you would need to re-notify the products on the UK Submit Cosmetic Products Notification portal in order to comply with the notification requirements. And here as well, there is a grace period to allow products that were already on the market before the end of the transition period to be re-notified from the beginning on the SCPM portal. Another key considerations are, of course, becoming familiar with the UK Serious Undesirable Effect reporting process, become familiar with how ingredients will be managed in the UK, because not in the short term, but in the long term, there might be divergence with the EU in terms of what ingredients are allowed or restricted in Europe and what ingredients might be restricted in the UK. And if you do sell cosmetic aerosols, you need to become familiar with the specific requirement under the UK aerosol regulation for labeling the UK CA mark instead of the reversed epsilon as it's currently required. And just a few focus points, because ultimately, as Brexit happened and the UK is no longer part of the EU single market and EU customs union, there is no free movement of goods between Europe and the UK, but also there is a change of roles and obligations from current distributors like shops or retailers, even online retailers that before were distributors, but now they would become importers because they would, of course, place products on the UK market from outside of the UK, from a third country, how Europe is now. Therefore, under the cosmetics regulation, an importer is automatically the UK responsible person. In some cases, the brand owner might accept for the importer to be the responsible person, But in some other cases, the brand owner might already have appointed or designated a UK responsible person. So it's really important for that UK importer, whether it's a shop or a retailer taking products from the EU brand owner directly, to mandate the designated UK responsible person. So there is a shift of the responsibility to the correct legal entity, and that UK shop or retailer can actually remain a distributor. And to continue a little bit, of course, the UK Cosmetics Regulation is fairly new, and it's been set in place recently, and it is, of course, evolving, and there are processes that need to be set in place. So CTPA is continuing to work with the UK government, the Office for Product Safety and Standards department, to continue to develop the notification portal so that new functionalities are included to improve the system and make it more user-friendly. At the same time, we've been working together with OPSS to set in place the independent scientific panel that would assess the safety of cosmetic ingredients and then advise on possible ban of ingredients or restrictions, for example. And also we are currently in the process for setting up an expert advisory group on cosmetics so that there can be a joint group between industry, regulators, and enforcement authorities. So it's an evolving process to set everything in place so that we can ensure complete functionality and implementation of the UK framework for cosmetics. And specifically for compliance with the cosmetic regulation, CTPA has a lot of public resources that are available on the CTPA public website. And they will be linked later on. I will explain the resources. The next important regulation that we need to take into account for the UK is REACH. So REACH is the Registration, Evaluation and Authorization of Chemicals Regulation. So it applies to chemicals, therefore also cosmetic ingredients, which are on their own or within mixtures, so within finished cosmetic products, when they are manufactured or imported into GB, again, important point here, above 1 ton per year. And I said into GB because also REACH only applies to Great Britain. When you sell to Northern Ireland, there is EU REACH in accordance to the Northern Ireland Protocol. And I mean, compliance with REACH, it's very complicated. However, if you are familiar with EU REACH, take the same principles, the same standards, and apply them to UK REACH, because REACH is also a retained EU law that was implemented as UK domestic law. There are specific transitional requirements, which I'm not able to cover in this presentation, but you will find more information on the slides when you receive them after the event. And this decision tree sort of summarizes those transitional requirements. What is the key takeout here is to companies to map their supply chain and understand where the chemicals, in our case, cosmetic ingredients they use are coming from, so that you can identify whether they already have a UK REACH registration from the original supplier, or if the original supplier is not planning to do so, what are the key obligations for the cosmetics manufacturers or importers, so that they ensure compliance with UK REACH. And this is the list of public resources that you can access from the UK government, from CTPA, and from the UK government from the REACH side. And I really advise you to consult these guidance documents because they have all the answers that you need. Especially on REACH, I really advise you to check the HSE UK REACH guidance because it has got specific information based on your role, whether you are a downstream user or you're importing now from Europe, or if you need to take on registration obligations. And just to continue on the essential tips, let's say, if you want to continue to trade with Europe as a UK-based company, Let's say that there is effectively no change in the sense of, the UK Cosmetics Regulation continues to apply in Europe as it has done before. The only thing that you need to take into account, though, is that if you are a UK-based company and your responsible person was previously located in the UK, you do need to set up a responsible person in one of the other 27 member states, because a UK company will no longer be recognized under EU jurisdiction. And of course, once you've set up that EU responsible person, you do need to update the label with the EU responsible person address. And here it's important to highlight that the EU Commission didn't give any transition period to allow for label updates. You do need to re-notify the products on CTMP under your new EURP account. You need to label the country of origin if the products are made in the UK, because the requirement is country of origin must be labeled if it's an imported product. And current distributors may become importers. So what we have seen about the mandate earlier for a product going from Europe to the UK will be exactly the same for a product going from UK into the EU. And something else that is important to take into account is that whilst the EU Cosmetics Regulation applies equally to all EU member states and EEA countries, every country has got additional local specific requirements that apply to cosmetics. And these can be under different aspects, whether that is about the translation of the labeling information into their local language. Some countries have, let's say, a minimum amount of information. Some countries actually require all the information to be translated in their local language. Now, getting even more and more of a hot topic, waste and recycling requirements, especially as we see EU member states implementing the requirements under the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive. So how communication of the product's packaging material has to be added on pack, but then we are going to see by the end of the year the EU Commission Green Deal giving requirements about mandatory labeling environmental information or environmental claims. So that is something that you need to take into account to ensure compliance with those requirements. And then another sort of big thing that we are seeing now that the UK is no longer part of the EU single market and customs union is that customs clearance procedures are more difficult, not just because there is the, let's say, generic customs clearance process, but there are some countries, in particular the Mediterranean countries, that have specific customs clearance processes where you do need to do to submit, I don't know, certificate of analysis of your product, certificate of compliance for your product. So it's not just the basic customs clearance process, there is more to add to it for certain member states. And you do need to be aware of these, otherwise the goods will not enter that specific market. And just not to forget, REACH exists in Europe as well, as it has been for many years. So again, the same principles that we have seen for UK REACH about mapping the supply chain, understanding which chemicals are already registered in Europe, what tonnage quantity are you importing into the EU? Do you have a change of role? Because maybe before you were downstream user, but now you will be importing into Europe. So you do need to take into account all these factors to be able to understand how to continue to comply with EU REACH as well. And this is the list of all the resources as well from an EU point of view. So CTPA also has guidance on supplying cosmetics to the EU market. And then I added here the technical notices on cosmetics and on REACH from the EU Commission. So I really advise you to also check this guidance if you plan to continue to sell to the EU market. And also don't forget that, as there is CTPA in the UK, there are a lot of local associations in every member state. So I just listed some of them here. So France has its own trade association, FEBEA, Spain has got Stampa, Italy has got Cosmetica Italia. So try to reach out to the local associations who will be able to help, but ultimately also the local authorities will be able to help if you find issues in continuing to sell to the specific European market. And thank you very much. I hope whilst quick, it was useful to share, the few most important things that you need to take into account to comply with the UK requirements, but also comply with the EU requirements if you want to continue to sell in Europe.
Thanks very much, Francesca. I'd now like to ask Rachel to give her presentation on the trading challenges for UK companies. Hi, Rachel.
Hi there. Hello, everyone. I'm hoping you can hear me. I am going to keep this as interesting and exciting as I possibly can, because some of you might be thinking, oh my goodness, it's the logistics bit I can tune out. But I'm going to keep it really light and really quick for you. And I know that for those of you who are out there right now who have been trading with the EU prior to Brexit, things have been feeling really, really tough. And as I've been talking to you, I've been hearing words like frustration, annoyed, disappointed, despondent, despair. And I think that's totally to be expected. I think it's become very clear that there wasn't a great deal of analysis of exactly how this was going to affect businesses. And I think that is extremely applicable to independent business. And I know all of you have experienced challenges around new paperwork requirements. I know we're experiencing massive delays with parcels, the length of time it's taking us to get our freight out of the UK and into Europe. In fact, someone I was talking to yesterday was telling me that there are over 20,000 parcels stuck on the border in Germany. So we're grinding to a halt. I know some of you have been experiencing additional charges from your 3PLs because there's more work to be done now on the European orders. Parcel carriers have put in additional charges because there's more work for them to do. Then you've got your new taxes and duties to be dealing with. And on top of that, just when you think you might have got it all under control, it changes. I think my message for you today is that the dust is settling. All of this kind of confusion is beginning to settle out now, and there are solutions emerging. And I want to give you a really, really positive forward look at how you can manage your logistics if you're UK based and you want to be still trading and still investing in developing and scaling your business in Europe. So what I would love to do is tell you that it's going to cost you the same and that there's not going to be an increase in cost to trade with the EU. But I'm afraid that isn't going to be a message that I can give you. I'm going to be able to give you easier, more stress-free solutions, but trading with the EU from the UK now is going to cost more. And those costs are something that you're going to need to factor into your plans for the future. So if you are already doing a reasonable or significant number of orders into Europe, whether that's direct to consumer or business to business, or you have a really robust growth plan in the EU, then the biggest recommendation that is coming out at the moment, logistics wise for you guys, is to look at setting up your own logistics infrastructure, which sits independently of your UK logistics infrastructure. It sits on mainland Europe. And that's going to enable you to essentially move your product much faster and keep your customer service levels as high as they have been previously and avoid some of these delays. Although I do expect those to get better, guys. So, but you're going to be able to respond to what's happening in Europe, your European side of your business, far more professionally by looking at setting yourself up with that logistics hub in Europe. Now, to do that, I'm going to give you the solution right now. So Kirsty, if you want to pop up my slide, I've pulled together a really, I hope, useful diagram for you guys here so that you can see how this works. So over here on the left, we have you, the UK brand. You are sitting in the UK. In order to be able to trade in Europe effectively, what you're going to need to do is set up an importer of record and also have some fiscal representation in Europe. And one of the best places that you can do that is in the Netherlands, because by importing directly into the Netherlands, you can avoid some of those import taxes. So you would have in the Netherlands an importer of record and you would have fiscal representation. So by finding someone there in the Netherlands who does that, you're importing and you can be importing in bulk to fulfill all your European requirements. And your fiscal representation there would be able to manage all this VAT confusion, manage all your EORI numbers, and this unit that you've got here, your fiscal representation, your importer of record, would also then be able to manage the onward transit of your bulk freight into a warehouse, third-party logistics operator somewhere on mainland Europe, who would then be able to fulfill all your orders to Europe and ROI if you need, rest of world, sorry, if you needed it, both with your consumer orders, direct to consumer, your website trade, but also your trade customers on Europe as well. Now, this might seem really complicated and a real faff, and I know some of you are now sitting there going, oh my God, so now I've got to find this, I've got to find that, I've got to find the other. This is a huge thing to do. So I want to bring you a little bit of happiness and joy and tell you that as a logistics expert, I've already got this network lined up for you. I've done all the hard work. So I partner with a warehouse and a third-party logistics operator who work out of they're in Germany, just on the Netherlands border. They specialize in working with beauty brands, and this is their main growth market themselves. And what they've done is they have a partner in the Netherlands who is your fiscal representation and your importer of record. So literally this network is already set up for you. It's just something that you need to really, contact me and we can have a look at it and dive into how we're going to roll this out for you. And I think the last thing that I wanted to say as well is to give you a little bit of more good news. Because one of the questions that always comes up when I'm talking to brands about how they're going to manage this European fulfillment is always around the VAT. I'm no expert in this. My sort of expertise is in the logistics side and setting up this infrastructure with you, which will allow you to continue to trade and maintain your customer service levels in Europe. But I know from the partnership I've got with my German warehouse that at the moment with VAT, it's really time consuming and awkward because there are thresholds for each country. When you hit that threshold, you then have to apply for a local VAT number. You have to do a local VAT filing. As of the 1st of July, word on the street says that the European are bringing together a one-stop shop VAT solution, which will be a web portal, a centralized system where essentially you'll be able to go on there, state your revenue for each country and pay your VAT for each country through this online portal. So it's going to become a much more simpler operation in the future. If you were working inside this network, my network, or whether you went out and researched your own network that you can see in front of you here on the slide, if you were working within my network, your fiscal representation in the Netherlands would take over all that responsibility for you anyway. So they would be doing that for you. So I told you I would keep it as brief as possible, and I would simplify it as much as possible, and also hopefully give you a kind of off the peg solution, which enables you to really move forward in Europe logistically as fast as possible, so that you can, keep things moving and keep expanding. So I hope you all feel a little bit more positive. You can contact me with any questions, and I will hand over to the next speaker.
Thanks very much, Rachel. So we now go over to Agathe and Nataliya.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Yes.
So just sharing our screen.
So thank you very much, Jane, for the introduction at the beginning of this webinar. We will just share our screen and then we'll go further. Yeah, so let's continue to talk about UK compliance after Brexit, and we will try to study with you some concrete cases actually that we could met during, thanks to our position of the regulatory consulting company. So yes, just some words about who is Ecomundo. So Ecomundo is a French company, and we are specialists in toxicology and regulatory compliance services with expertise on different chemical regulations such as REACH, CLP, cosmetics, food supplements, biocidal products, and medical devices. We are, very proud to be a long-time partner of Cosmetic here in France. We also collaborate with other professional associations in different countries. So thank you very much for inviting us to participate in this session.
So, so today in our webinar, we'll see two different contents. First content is to see the UK cosmetic compliance. So we saw previously the part of the regulation, but here the aim is really to talk about the strategy, to describe some of the cases we could have. And then in the second part, it will be dedicated to REACH UK, and exactly the same way we'll precise some different cases, discuss about them, highlight what are the points of attention, depending on the regulation and on difficulties you could face. So first to start, the UK cosmetic compliance and the different cases we could study. So we worked with Nataliya on preparing for you some different cases of cosmetics that you could face, depending on if you are placing your products on the UK market, if it's a new product, if it's a product that was already on the European one, on the UK one, and to see what are the different steps you need to complete before the placing on the market, but also what are the point of attentions and some difficulties. At the end of this part, we'll also some of our advices specifically dedicated to some part of the regulation, as we can help you with all the compliance of the cosmetic parts in the UK. So starting about first cases, so I have divided the first cases into two, as they are measured, that they're some of the measured things like are exactly the same, only differences is regarding the RP, so the responsible person. So in the first case, you have a product that is already compliant with the European regulation and is already on the UK market. So first case is that you have the RP based in Europe. So the question that you have to ask and to answer specifically is how to make sure the products are compliant with the UK requirements, how to transfer the information from the Europe to the UK, and also adapting the requirements to the responsibilities directly to the UK. In the second case, it's exactly the same. So you have European compliant products already on the UK markets. But here in the case, your RP is based in the UK. So first, are the products also in the European market or exclusively in the UK markets? And also how to adapt the information and the files and also the notification of your product. So for these two cases, the steps to complete are exactly the same. So the first measure step is, of course, the selection of the UK RP. Then second step is the audit of the files you have. So by files, we mean all the documentation related to the products and the PIF, so the product information file to be completed. In the case of finding non-compliance, of course, you need to plan a step dedicated to adapting the requirements, making sure that all the files that you have and documents are compliant with the UK regulation. After everything is completed, then you will need to notify your products. And then at the end, and we will see why it's at the end for this specific case, you have to update the labelings to make sure that they are compliant with the UK. So for these two cases, what are the point of attention? So first, for the selection of the UK responsible person. So the responsible person is responsible for the files, but also for placing the products on the market. He is also the point of contact of the authorities and will provide all the information upon requests and also communicate with you to identify all the points that will have to be gathered and transferred directly to the authorities or updated in case of non-compliances. So this is a very big point of attention. We'll see nextly why the selection of the UK RP is very important. Then second part is the audits of the files. So I was saying that in the first case, in fact, you already have a file because your products are already compliant with the European requirements. So of course, you do not need to create again a complete file. You just need to make sure that the file and the information you already have is okay for the UK requirements. So specific big point of attention is, of course, for the UK, all the documents you need to have would have to be in English. This is one of the mandatory information to check, is that all the documents should be in English as it has to be transferred to the English authorities. So in the case of some of the documents and elements that are not in English, you need to plan to have a translation of the documents before the placing on the market. In case of any other differences, because your file could be okay for the European compliance, but then at the end, in the next years, you may have to adapt the requirements, or there are some small specificities you may need to make sure to comply with the UK requirements. So then you need to plan a step dedicated to the adapting the requirements. So it's something that can be a bit difficult for you to estimate at the very beginning, but this is something that you need to plan. And of course, depending on the level of adaptation that you need to make on your files, maybe you will have some additional delays before you're placing on the market, because you need to make sure that everything is compliant prior to the placing on the market. After creating the files, making sure that they are compliant, there's the part dedicated to notifying the products. So of course, before placing on the market, same as in Europe, all products should be notified and notified under the RP portal. So first, you need, of course, to make sure that the portal has been created and you have access to this portal. In the case of products of case one, the products were already compliant with the European regulation and were already on the UK market. So the deadline for notifying, as we've seen previously, is that you have until end of March for transferring completely the notification. After that, when everything is completed and the notification done, there is the updates of the labels. For now, all the products that were placed on the UK market before the Brexit, so before January 2021, there's a transition period that is accepted for the updates of the label. But when you are notifying the products, maybe you could think that everything is completed. So it's very essential and very important that you think of that one day you will need to plan of updating your labels. So it needs to be planned in the update of your products in maybe 1 or 2 years, depending on also on the transition period. So these are all the points of attention that will be for the case where you have a product that is compliant with the European regulation and already on the UK market with an RP that can be in Europe or in UK. Case 2 is a bit different. Here in the case, you have still the compliance with the European regulation, but they are not already on the UK market, but they are planned to be on the UK market. So here in this case, the first question that you need to ask is that your RP for Europe was in Europe, in the UK. You have already planned an RP in both areas. So first, the measure point is to identify the best strategy for placing on the market in the UK. You need also to adapt, again, the files and the notification. And also, if you have a product that is placed in both areas, mixing the compliances and also respecting, of course, your deadline of placing on the market. So first step is, again, the selection of the UK RP, because of course, here you have a European compliant product, but you're planning to place your products in the UK market. So first thing is to identify the UK RP and to find someone that will be able to be your RP. Then the second part and second step would be the creation of the file for the UK, because you already have a European file, but you need also to create a file for the UK. You have to create labeling that is compliant with the UK requirements. Then after all this creation of the file and labeling, you need to notify the product. And after all your notification and file, you need to make the follow-up with your UK RP with the follow-up of the regulatory watch, updated of the file if necessary, placing on the market, cosmetovigilance, etc. So in this case, what are the points of attention? So again, exactly the same as the first case, you need to select, of course, the best UK RP that you need, with the idea that the RP would be the point of contact of the authorities, and we need to provide all the information. Then for the creation of the files, you need to see what you already have, so all the documents that you already have prepared and the PIF created for the Europe, and to see if it's okay with the UK. So in the case of a placing in the UK market, it might be necessary to have what we call the duplication of the European PIF, because for now, the majority of the requirements are quite the same as the European one, and make all the adaptations that are necessary. As an example, of course, the name of the RP will not be exactly the same because you need to put the UK address instead of the European one. For the labeling creation, very important point of attention is that, again, all measure requirements are the same as in Europe. You need to make sure that the labels are translated into English, but point of attention is that the RP address that will have to be included in the labeling is, of course, the UK one. For notifying the products, exactly the same as for case one, all products should be notified before the placing on the market under the RP portal. Make sure again that the portal is created, and of course, again, to make sure that the products are notified before the placing on the market. After all of this, you can place, of course, your products on the UK market, but when a product is on the UK market, you need to make sure to have a great follow-up with your RP. So if in the case, for example, your RP is not the one making the files, all the elements that you have already done, so the UK compliance, sorry, files creation, labeling, any elements that is related to the product have to be transferred to the responsible person in the UK. Then last case, last case is that you absolutely don't have any compliance, so neither in Europe nor in UK. It's a completely new product that can be placed in the European, but also in the UK market. So again, first major question is, who will be the RP? Would it be necessary to have a responsible person in Europe, in UK, in both areas? So first point is, of course, to identify the countries of distribution, because by identifying these countries, you will be able to then select your RP and then create completely the files. So the steps to be completed is first, again, to identify the countries of distribution, to select your RP, to create the files, to create the labeling, and to notify your products for the placing on both markets. Points of attention is, of course, again, countries of distribution. Why it's so important and why I'm really insisting on this part is because the strategy will completely depend on the countries where you're placing the product. If it's only in the UK, then you will have only one RP. If it's only in Europe, it will be one single RP. But if it's in both countries, then you will need to do the compliance in parallel for both areas and making sure that you're meeting all the requirements. Then there will be the RP selection. In the case, for example, of two different areas, Europe and RP, there will be one or two RPs that will have to be mandated, depending on if you can find someone that could have an address in Europe, but also in the UK. In any case, you have to select in Europe and in UK, always an RP. You can be directly the responsible person if you have the addresses in both areas, but if you like, you can mandate someone that could take all your responsibilities. Then there will be the complete creations of the files. As I was saying previously, in the case you are placing the products in both markets, it can be necessary, depending on the type of differences that you have, to have a sort of 2 different PIFs, even if the conclusions are the same, even if most of the elements are the same, but there are 2 different requirements. If you have 2 different RPs not the same, then one would be given to one of your RP and the second one to the second RP. So that's why it's possible that you have a two PIF with most of the information that will be exactly the same. For the labeling creation, what is interesting is that for now, and depending also on the type of products, the conditions of the RPs, RP selections, etc., it can be possible to have one single labels for now with both name and addresses of RP for Europe and UK. Of course, it will be essential to have clearly indicated that one is for the Europe and the second one is for the UK. If it's possible, you can mix all mandatory information and have it in one single labeling. But if it's not possible, it will be necessary to have 2 different labels. And then, of course, notifying the products before the placing on the market, so on the portal of the RP, and in the case of marketing in Europe and in UK, it should be done on both portals, of course. So here were the end of the different cases that we had. So now we wanted to have a sort of focus and giving you advices on some points of difficulties that you could face. Of course, first one is how to select the best responsible person. So as a reminder, again, the UK responsible person will be the responsible for the placing on the market. He would be the point of contact of the authorities, and in case of controls, we'll have to transfer all the data and all the elements to the authorities. So how to select the RP? So our advice is that, of course, the RP should be placed in the UK and should be able to answer the question from the authorities. If the RP needs to provide the authorities with the documents, it's very essential that the RP knows the requirements and knows what to transfer to the authorities and to answer, even if it's not all the questions, but at least the first questions of the authorities. The RP should also keep the files and follow the compliance of the products. Of course, the aim of the RP, as soon as he's taking the responsibilities, in case of non-compliance, it's the RP who would be responsible completely for the non-compliance. So it's essential that the RP should be able to identify, to highlight with you the non-compliances. And of course, the regulation is constantly adapted and updated. And in case of any modification, in case of necessary updated, the RP should be able to facilitate completely the process and help you updating the files if necessary and give you the best advice on how to minimize the work and make sure that your products can still be on the market. Second important advice is for the notifications of the products. So as it was said, like the UK has been opening a new portal, which is not exactly the same as the European one, but is the SCPN portal for the notification of your products. So this portal is quite similar to the European one, but there are still some small differences. So you need to make sure to comply with all the differences and to still be able to notify correctly your products. So what is our advice to notify the products? So first, of course, again, as a reminder, the products should be notified on the RP account. So you must make sure that the access is created and is available for notification. So when we're talking about availability of notification is that in the European CPNP portal, it's quite easy to connect, even if you have like one single access. But for the UK portal, it's a bit different. For each connection, there's a code that is received per phone message. So the person notifying must be able to connect the account and to receive the phone message and to include it in the SCPN portal. So for example, if you are notifying the products on the RP account, but the RP is not the one notifying, it's important that the notifier still have an access and can be able to notify. So the notifier can ask for a team member access to the responsible person to be able to notify the products on his account. For now, on the portal, notifications are not possible, and after the notification of the product. So it's important to be sure that you have all the elements and all documents accessible and to to be able to provide them directly during the notification. So foreign products, again, placed in the European and in the UK, make sure to notice that it will not be one single notification that will be accepted, but it will be really two ones. If you're placing on both markets at the same time, you will need to double the notification and do the notification on the CPNP portal, but also in the SCPN one.
Great, so thank you very much, Agathe, for this very good presentation of different cases. Now let's talk about UK REACH compliance. Just for a short story, Ecomundo was selected by UK REACH authorities during the creation of the UK REACH IT platform as a beta tester. So we are very well placed to explain different cases, and also we know this UK REACH IT platform as you know, our own house actually. So just some general points. So now we all transition period are closed. So the UK REACH regulation, excuse me, is implemented from the 1st January of 2021. Who is concerned by the UK REACH compliance? So all manufacturers or importers of substances exceeding 1 ton per year shall ask themselves if they need to notify or to register something under UK REACH. From what to start working on these questions actually. So you can check, you can audit your situation by checking first your list of manufactured or imported substances. You check also their EU REACH status, and you need to check the manufactured or imported tonnage. So if your manufactured or imported tonnage exceed 1 ton per year, you need to go further at our webinar. So let's see some specific cases. The first case will be for the UK-based companies with substances above 1 ton per year. So if substances are manufactured in the UK and the UK manufacturer has performed all needed registrations under EU REACH before any Brexit issues, in this case, the appropriate strategy will be grandfathering. It means that you just need to create a UK REACH IT account, and then you will take advantage of simplified registration. So you provide some initial information based on your existing registration, and very important, you need to perform this before the 1st May of this year. So once you done this, you have like a short period of peace actually, because the final new registrations need to be performed within 2, 4, or 6 years after the 27th of October of this year. So you have, some years to prepare the final registrations. And of course, this deadline depends on the tonnage of the substances. Another case, it will be also for UK-based companies, but in case where substances are purchased outside the UK and they are covered by EU REACH registrations. So in this case, you can use the strategy of downstream user import notifications or HSE notifications. It's a little bit more complicated from the documentation point of view than the previous strategy, but it gives you also, some time to prepare the final registrations for your substances. So exactly as for the grandfathering, you need to connect yourself to UK REACH IT platform, create your account, and then provide some required information about your substance, about studies on it, etc., etc. If needed, you can contact us. We could help you with by providing the exhaustive list of needed documentation. And like this, So you will also get this like grace period for 2, 4, or 6 years before you perform your final registration under the UK REACH. The case 2 for us, it is European-based companies with the volume of substances above 1 ton per year. So good news is that all registrations performed on the EU REACH before Brexit, of course, they are still valid. And of course, if the EU company imports from the UK this substance, and the volume of tonnage banned is more than 1 ton per year, in this case, and the substance is not covered by EU REACH, you need to perform this EU REACH registration. If the EU-based company has clients in the UK and you want to help them with all of these UK REACH obligations, requirements, you can appoint a non-legal representative based in the UK and take advantage of this specific period and use the strategies of grandfathering or doing. So you just need to appoint an only representative, and this only representative will perform doing notification in your benefit. So you will get after this presentation this slide, actually our PowerPoint with this slide where we put the most important deadlines like the 1st of May and the 27th of October. And we mentioned some specific tools like REACH IT accounts and then a platform in the UK called Comply with the UK REACH. So that's it. Of course, we will be very, pleased to help you with this compliance. It's not easy, like Francesca mentioned before, but it's manageable. You just need to check good and right informations, and then select an appropriate strategy, and then schedule different deadlines, and just perform everything which is required. We will be very glad to help you if you contact us for this. So thank you very much, and we are ready for your question now.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, ladies. Can all the speakers get ready to join our panel now? I know we've had quite a few questions which Kirsty has been putting into the Q&A. And the first one, I believe Amanda is going to take that one for us.
Yes, Jane, I don't know if you want to read it out again or.
Hang on, I just need to find it. Or can you see
it? Yeah, I can see it.
Sorry.
The first question is looking for clarity on stating an address on products for a responsible person in the EU. Having to over-label a lot of stock, is this required for products being sold to UK customers who may then sell on to consumers in the EU? Also, is it only the unit carton, i.e. the outer packaging, that needs the address, or does the primary unit also need the label? This is taking a lot of time, resource and cost. So I'm going to do the easy bit first. The easy bit is, does it need to be on the outer and the inner? Yes, unfortunately, strictly speaking, it does need to be on both. The more grey area is actually the other side of this question, and I'm going to end up posing more questions probably than solutions here, but it's something that people can have a think about. So do you need the EU address on stock that you're supplying in the UK? Well, obviously, in theory, for the UK market, no. But obviously, we need to ask, where is that stock going when you're supplying it? Perhaps within your commercial arrangement. I'm guessing this is probably through a website. Is that website already in the commercial contract with you, letting you know that they're supplying the EU? Then obviously, there is a known supply chain already in place. If, however, they're obviously doing that without you knowing it's going to the EU, then that is a little bit out of your control. So I would say, first of all, go back to your commercial arrangements, your terms and conditions that you've got with whichever retailer it is, and see exactly what the situation is. My second question, if you were in front of me, was what EU address are you actually putting on pack? Because you're stating that you're just supplying it into the UK. So I'm wondering whether you've set up your own EU address, or whether in another supply chain you've got an importer involved. And strictly speaking, when there's an importer involved, they are by default the responsible person, and therefore the name and address going on pack. So I think you need to look at your supply chain and consider, actually, is the address that you've nominated on your pack actually the one in reality that is taking on the responsibility, or do you need perhaps a mandate in place between the importers and the name and address that you have actually, in theory, nominated? But if you have got an online sale only, then the other question is your product actually compliant? So even though you have put an EU name and address on pack, if that UK website is supplying direct to consumer in the EU, technically speaking, in that supply chain, because there's no importer, you may be able to argue that it's not actually a compliant product. So I think there's a lot of questions that you need to ask about your supply chain before we can fully answer that question. But coming back to the very basics, chances are, yes, you do need it on your pack, and yes, it does need to be outer and inner. Happy to have a pitch in on that. I know it was quite a bit.
Amanda. Does anybody else have any further comments or additional information to add? No. Okay, I'll go to the next question, which is, if you had one Brexit related question that you'd like to ask the Chancellor, that's, I think, the UK Chancellor, what, on behalf of the cosmetic industry, what would it be and why? So I might direct that one at Rachel.
I knew you were going to come to me. To be fair, the question that I would have is for him to really explain to us the process and the thought that had gone into, and the expectation of what this was going to look like, and how, because from my point of view and the point of view of the brands that I'm working with, the challenge has been around the lack of a clear path forwards. And so I would want to understand from him, what was that, what was that clear path? Did we miss it? Is there something that we should, that we're not being told that we should be being seen? And how is he, or how are we as a government negotiating this going forwards? Because I'm confident we're not being left with this sort of slightly up and down, not really sure where we're going, but it would be great to hear what they are doing in order to smooth this through. Things like the centralised VAT that's going to be coming out and things like that. That's where I think we need to be asking the questions. What is it going to look like? How is it going to be improved? And what are they doing to help us achieve that?
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other ideas on what would be a good question for the Chancellor? I think that's a good one, though, personally. Okay, thanks very much, Rachel. Question 3 and 4, I believe Francesca is going to answer these for us. And the first one is, can I clarify? My understanding is that while EU businesses had a grace period of a year to get a UK responsible person address on their packaging, isn't it the case that UK-based businesses had to have this sorted before the 31st of December 2020? And question 4, is one EU RP enough, or do you need an RP in each EU state that you sell into?
Yes, so I start with question 3. So you are correct. So the UK government did give, it's actually a 2 years transition period to allow companies to label the UK RP address on pack. But it didn't work the same way the other way around, where UK companies who wanted to continue to sell to the EU, they didn't have any transition period to add the EU RP address on pack. So any products placed on the market from 1st January this year, on the EU market, sorry, from 1st January this year must have the EU RP address on pack right away, basically. There was no transition period there. And the other question, oh yes, about the, is one EU RP enough, or do I need an RP in each EU member state? No, you don't. You just have one responsible person in one of the member states that will act as the EU responsible person, so you can sell the product in every member state with that one EU RP.
Thank you. The next question, I'm not quite sure exactly what it means. Are there any charges to the EU responsible person? Go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, like you say, I'm not 100% sure what their question is, so I'm going to take a little bit of a stab in the dark. But if they mean, is there any charge to set up an EU responsible person, then I think the answer to that is unfortunately probably yes, but it varies from member state to member state. So in effect, what you're doing obviously is setting up a business and registering a company in a member state, and what that costs you in each member state will be completely different. So there's lots of factors to consider, not just the charges though, of course, is whether there might be residency requirements for you to set up a business there. And obviously not just those two as well, is going forward, the practicalities of you may not be able to speak their language. So lots of things to consider. In terms of anything else, the only other thing I can think of is they mean notification, but I guess they would already know that CPMP is free, as is the UK.
Thank you. Well, I hope that gives the question the answer that they need. This next question is directed to Agathe, please. How about the research tax credit or the CIR? A UK company now out of the EU can request one to provide services, support B2B for the R&D activities of French companies. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
But to be honest, I absolutely don't have the answer to the question. No, I think this is something that is not directly related to the compliance of cosmetic products, but is more related to all the process in general and all the manufacturing, the use of labs, etc. So I think it's more related directly to the company itself. So I absolutely don't have any idea of any regulatory compliance, but it's not mentioned in anything related to cosmetic.
Okay. The next question is, it says it's quite specific to their brand. We sell natural henna, and those are called Jaguar and the original brown. I have body paints that we call white henna, neon henna, etc. But they've been taken down from Amazon and not registered in UAE. They have had the correct testing labels and are completely safe for the skin, and all are safe and legal. I think the word henna is confusing them. We have classed it as henna due to the brand and nature of the packaging and application. Is someone able to give advice on this? This might need to be something for after the session, because I think that's very specific. Maybe we can formulate some kind of answer to email afterwards. Question on REACH. The 1 ton limit for EU REACH, is that based on total SKUs offered or by individual SKU? I think that would be one for Ecomundo, perhaps.
Yeah, so when we talk about REACH compliance, we talk about substances, not about final products. So if we talk about cosmetics like cream, lotions, etc., we need to see their composition actually. So we will check each ingredients, and then actually not. I mean, the brand need to check, or the importer company need to see all range of cosmetics, all composition of each cosmetics, and then for example, if in several cosmetics you find the same ingredient, like for example, I don't know, glycerin or something like this. So you need to check if all of these glycerin come from the same supplier or not. If it is from the same supplier, so you addition all quantities of glycerin for different products, so you obtain the total tonnage for this glycerin, and you take your decision about the REACH compliance. And if you have several suppliers for the same ingredients, so in this case, you check the tonnage by supplier, by provider, and then you decide for each kind of for each supplier if you need to do something or not regarding REACH compliance. I hope I answered this question.
Okay, does anybody else have any additional comments on that one? No. I'm based in the UK and sell into many EU states. Should I have an insert leaflet with different languages rather than have different labels for money saving purposes? I'm not sure if we've answered that one already. That was another question.
I'm happy to take that one.
Okay, thank you.
So, I mean, the leaflet under the Cosmetics Regulation, the leaflet is not provided for translated information. So the translated information in the local language of the country where you're selling the product must be on the actual label, not on the leaflet. The exemption of the leaflet or a tag or a card is only provided for the ingredients list and the warnings if there isn't enough space on pack. But in terms of translation, these have to be on the label itself.
Okay, thank you. I believe that is it for the questions. Is that right, Kirsty? Can you just let me know? I think we've covered all the questions, unless anybody has any other ones. Okay, yes, that's it for the questions. So I think we'll bring everything to a conclusion, unless any of the panelists have any final comments before we go. It's been really interesting and definitely an awful lot of information that's been shared. And I do feel that there might be some sort of positive outlook that we can all take from this. We will be sending out the presentations to the people who've registered. And if you do have any questions following on, please let us know and we'll endeavour to get them answered for you as soon as we can. And I think we have recorded this, so it will be available to view if you want to go through it all again. That would be wonderful. So thanks very much to the speakers. Thanks very much for your time and participation. And also thank you to the Global Cosmetics Cluster for working with us to put this event together. And we look forward to being able to do more events in the future on different topics. So thank you all very much and stay safe and well, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.